Welcome to the Employment Wednesday podcast with Yvonne Shabangu. Have you heard of the scripture Hosea 4 verse 6? My people perish because of the lack of knowledge. The same applies to your career. When you don't know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, you are likely to make wrong career choices. But worry not. Employment Wednesdays is here for you to offer you all the answers relating to your career and offer you strategies to develop your career. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. You are welcome to another episode of Law Without Borders with Yvonne Shabangu. So today I'm sitting with one of my faves, Blaise Koetsie. Before I introduce her, I'm going to start off with our shoutouts. So the first shoutout goes to Victoria Brand Strategy Com. Thank you so much for always using the thanks option. That's why the shout out is to you. Like, guys, please use the thanks option. Like, just click thanks if you want to see the podcast come back, if you want to see the podcast grow, because you guys know that it's money keeping it going. And then the second shout out goes to Day In, Day Out with Lee. She says, I'm a final year student. I just wrote my exams. Hoping for the best. And I, for one, I'm learning a lot from this channel and I'm definitely going his route. And he was referring to the advocacy route. And then she says, I've always wanted to be an advocate, but I was confused on I was confused on how the journey is going to be. I'm happy that this helps you in a way. So if you want me to special shout out you, comment, share the episodes, and yeah, we get to grow. So today we're sitting with Blaise Koetsie. She is a BA LLB graduate from the university down the road. From the University of Witwatersrand. She's an admitted attorney. She's a business rescue practitioner, and she's currently serving as a risk legal specialist at one of the big banks. Thank you so much for honoring my invite.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
That is so nice, man. I'm so excited to have you as well. Before we go into the conversation, we're going to start off with some icebreakers.
Okay.
This is where we get the tea. Baupatela sharp. Well, we haven't gotten their jokes, ne? But if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
A superpower, I think it would be healing.
Okay.
Yeah, healing.
Why
Because I
healing?
think, well, my name, I was named after a saint, Saint Blaise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think, people go through things that we don't necessarily know. So not all wounds are visible.
Okay.
So healing, yeah.
Okay. And then which drink best describes your personality and why?
I think probably I want to say a mimosa.
Okay.
Because I can be like party fun, but the orange juice, focus on my health.
Okay. I love that. Okay. You're a dual. And then what is your fondest childhood memory?
I think being with my grandmother. Yeah, just being with my grandmother, really spending time with her, eating her home cooked meals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. What is your weirdest food combination? If we caught you eating it, we're just like, Blaise, what's going on?
I don't know. I don't think I really have weird food combinations. I like all food. So
What's your favorite meal? Like your go-to meal? Like you don't mind cooking it any time, any day?
Okay, so in the morning, omelets with cherry tomatoes, mushroom, and baby spinach.
Love it.
And then in the evenings, probably like a curry, a chicken curry. I like curry. I enjoy it.
Okay, nice. And then now we're going to go into the serious stuff, starting off with your high school. How was your high school experience like? Did you enjoy high school?
So funny enough, I've actually been to 7 schools in my life. I've been to 7 schools.
Why? Maybe before you tell us about how high school was, tell us why so many schools. What was happening?
I guess we moved around a lot. And as I mentioned my grandmother earlier, so when my grandmother passed, I had to come, because I lived in Durban. I had to move to Joburg, live with my mom. And I guess when we were in Joburg, we moved around a lot.
Okay.
yeah.
And you'd have to change schools all the
And
time.
I'd have to change schools, yeah.
And how did that impact you? Because I can imagine that constantly having to make new friends, constantly having to adapt, did it impact you in any way? Or it was just okay?
Well, most of the schools, it was during my primary years, which is actually very, I think, worse because you're still developing yourself. But I didn't think much of it. I think I've always been a reserved, shy kid. So it was always the same thing, getting to a new school, trying to make friends, which I did. I didn't struggle to make friends, but it was just, I guess I just took it in my stride. I didn't,
Okay, then you can put us through high school. How was high school?
High school was good. I went to 2 different high schools.
Okay.
My first high school was really small. There was just not a lot of kids in that high school, but it was good. It was good. And then I moved into a bigger school, and I think that was when I really discovered myself, but still very much in my shell. I think the group that my friendship group, everyone was very reserved, which I think saved me. You know, I was like, all my friends were like academics, you know, I was in sports. So it wasn't anything crazy. My mom was super strict. So no going out, no parties, no nothing. I was like under lock and key.
Like you were locked down before COVID happened. You already
Exactly.
locked
That
down.
was my high school experience. But in hindsight, it helped me.
So when you moved to a different high school, was it easy for you to transition into the new high school? Or because I can understand that I think maybe primary could have been a bit better because you're small and it's like, it is what it is. And then now you're in high school. Which grade did you change schools?
In grade 8.
In grade 8.
Yeah. So in primary, I think grade 1 and grade 2 I was in one school. Then I changed. Oh gosh, I can't even remember. But yeah, I probably like every 2 years I changed. 2 to 3 years I changed.
Because now you're in grade 8 and it's just after you become a teenager, right? So now you're self-conscious of what's happening around you, who's around you, and all of that. Was that change different compared to the other changes, or it was just like, oh, it's a new school again?
I think because my old high school was smaller, I'd kind of, reconciled myself to the personalities that I was exposed to, and that, these are the people I'm going to see, interact with. So when I changed and I went to a bigger school, I was like, whoa, now there's like 10 times more people, 10 times more personalities. And it's just like, how do I then kind of find my way? But yeah, I think like I'm saying, like I found my way into the right friendship group and it helped me. But it was fine. I didn't have too much stress.
Okay. What was your high school highlight, if you remember any, that lives rent-free in your mind? The story you're going to tell your kids and your grandchildren, like, yeah, when I was in school.
Right. I think probably sports. I did athletics. So I was an athlete, probably track. So I think, maybe those hectic race days, when you're like preparing yourself and you just the nerves. Sports was really big for me. And then outside of sports, I'd say probably in my matric year, just the studying. I remember just the studying. So yeah, I guess, my high school, that was it.
All right, cool. And then when you started applying, in high school, what did you want to be? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to be?
Yes, I knew that I was going to be either going into law or going into journalism, and I applied for both.
Also, what were your influences regarding those choices of careers?
I guess the subjects I was strong in. So I was always strong in English, I was always weak in maths.
like I'm not trying to go into science and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I struggled with maths. I did economics as well. I was really good at economics. So I knew that I wanted to be something that was business, law, but law just always, tipped the scales. So, yeah.
And then choice of university. I mean, you could have went to UJ, you could have went to the University of Cape Town, you could have went to UP. Why did we go to the university down the road? Why did you choose Wits over every other university?
So it's actually a special story. I actually didn't apply because I didn't think I was smart enough to get into Wits.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, the stereotype has always been a thing.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm never going to get in there.
Yeah.
And then I remember the last day of applications, my dad actually went. He was like, "Did you apply to Wits because they're closing today?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't. And I don't think I'm gonna get in." He's like, "No, just apply, just apply." And he actually physically went there and I put in my application. And then also because my family, out of all my grandmother's children, only one went to university, which was my aunt, and she got a scholarship to go, and she went to Wits. So she always had that thing like, no, you should go to Wits, you should go to Wits. So yeah.
So if you had not applied at Wits, what was the plan? Where were you gonna study?
I was planning on going to UJ.
Oh, that was your first choice, first love.
I was planning on going to UJ. I was like, yes, going there.
Okay. Had you also applied at UJ, had you applied for law and journalism or something else?
I applied for journalism at
Only?
UJ, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what made you choose law? What was the determining factor between you doing law and journalism? How do you get to a decision where we're scratching out journalism and we're picking law?
I think, I wanted to do law, but ultimately it was also my aunt.
Okay.
She was just like, no, you should do law, you should do law,
Yeah.
So definitely family around me. And I was like, okay, cool. This is always, because law was something that was in my mind for a while, but it's just that I really enjoyed English and I enjoyed storytelling and I enjoyed, the whole art of, storytelling. So, but ultimately, I went with law.
Do you ever sit and grieve the idea of the type of journalist you could have been? Or was it a thing of, oh, well, I'm going to choose law and, you know what, yes, I love storytelling, I love this, but it's fine. Do you ever sit and wonder what your life could have went like had you chosen journalism?
I do. And ultimately, I'm so happy with my decision of going with law. I'm just like, phew.
Oh, okay.
Because, because journalism is, it's a hard profession, but it's also a very rewarding profession. And I think that the role of journalists in society is so important because, especially in South Africa, there's so many stories that need to be told. But I also think I guess it's just that you pick your evil, so to say, because you're also exposed to horrendous stories. So it's kind of like maybe I wouldn't have been able to handle it on the scene right there and there. So yeah.
Yeah, you have with your choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think high school prepared you for university? How was your transition from high school to university?
I think because my mom was so strict, when I got to varsity, I was like, free at last, free at last.
You were wilding.
I was like, it is my time.
Yes, let
me shine. So it was fun. I thought the transition was fun, but I didn't understand. And I knew I had to pause. But I was like, you know what? Now I'm like my own person. I'm on my own. I'm staying in race. I've got, I'm independent. So it was kind of just a journey of finding myself, I'd say. Yeah.
And then do you think high school prepared you for what university was?
Academically, I would say yes and no, because I always knew that I had to study. You have deadlines in high school, you've got assignments, but no, in that time management. Because in varsity, you don't come to lectures, you don't submit on time, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Your teachers are not going to run after you. So I think, yes and no.
Okay. And then what are some of the struggles you experienced when you got to university that you felt like, yo, I'm thinking, or that made you make certain decisions?
I think probably when I started getting into my modules. So I started with a BA law.
Okay.
So I did other subjects like psychology, international relations. I can't even remember the other subjects while doing my law subjects. So it was all of I think the BA law allowed me to kind of make a comparison to be like, do I want to go into law or do I want to go into the human social sciences? So it was that constant comparison of the two. So yeah.
Okay. And then did you know what you were going to be with a law degree? Were you familiar about your options?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'd say yes and no. I knew obviously the two main routes that you could take as an attorney or an advocate, but not anything beyond that.
Okay.
No.
So you didn't know that one day you're gonna be a risk legal specialist.
Yeah.
Okay. So then now you get done in university. Do you have any moment of highlight in university that will carry you for the rest of your life, like that follows you?
Yes, I do. I was involved in leadership, a lot of leadership at the university. So I was part of the SRC and I was part of the Law Students Council. First, I started with the Law Students Council and then I went on to the SRC. And for me, that changed, like, honestly, so much because I think being exposed to leadership at that level at such a young age, it really just sets you up for what you want, where you want to go in life, and like your thinking. And I mean, at the time, it was during the whole fees must fall. That was our SRC term. So you're dealing with such issues that literally are impacting so many students and so many people, not just in your region, but across the whole country. And it really makes you think first of all of, being a leader outside of yourself and just really the magnitude that your actions can have if you're brave enough to stand up and say something and take action, So it was an experience that I will never forget, and I think has really carried me because it also taught me a lot about professionalism. When you in SRC and when you're in the Law Students Council, you interact a lot with third parties and you interact a lot with like the deans and everything like that. So you learn from a young age how to carry yourself in spaces where you never thought you'd even be, or you feel like maybe this is not. It's easy for you to feel intimidated, and you learn how to quickly rise up to the occasion and be bold and say things that you want to say because you're not just speaking for yourself, but for a whole constituency that's standing behind you, and more than that, depending on you to actually get a message through. Yeah,
I love that. What prompted you to go into SRC? Was it how does it work? How do you even go into SRC?
It's a voting, so yeah, it's voting based. Students vote based on obviously your manifesto, what your vision is for the university, what you feel will improve the lives of students, and you campaign, and then thereafter you vote. For me, it was quite strange how I got into it. I had a very close friend and colleague who was in SRC in the term before I took office, and what they have their subcommittees. So it's like a committee that helps the person in office to delegate and execute their duties. And I was in the subcom, and I think that's where I got exposed to it. So I took an opportunity just to learn, just to be exposed to something that I hadn't really done before. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay. And then when did you start applying for articles? So since you knew the traditional route, what did you come to decide? Like, what was the plan? What were you going to do? Were you either going to be an advocate or an attorney? And what led you to deciding whatever route you followed?
I didn't. So after I graduated, I didn't immediately go into my articles.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't immediately go into my articles. I think that I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a lawyer. I think my studies beat me down a bit.
Because I was about to say yes. What made you doubt? What instilled the little bit of, do I want to do this or not?
Yeah, it was just it was grueling. Law school is grueling.
Yeah, that is so true.
It will test you. I mean, like flower hole. If you went to it, you know the trauma.
Yeah.
of flower hole. So I was feeling very traumatized. I won't lie. I was like, yo, this is like too much.
Yeah.
And also because I always had that creative side in me, and it never ever died down.
Yeah.
It never ever went away. And I was like, what, maybe it's time now for me to pursue that. So I needed some time to think about my decision.
So then after you graduate, so did you take a break before you went into articles after your BA. So after your BA, you went straight into your LLB.
Yes.
And how was that transition? Was there any much of a difference, or how does it work? Because I did a straight LLB.
No, it wasn't too hard of a transition because I'd already been doing law subjects
Okay.
throughout my whole PA. So now it was just completing, I guess, the remaining legal subjects that I hadn't done.
Okay. So then what did you then get up to when you decided, you know what, let me like think if this is what I want to do?
Well, I applied for an internship at a popular radio station. I was like, okay, cool, let me try this out.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was good. I learned a lot. I did like modules in film, modules in TV, and obviously modules in radio. But I also learned the back end of what happens at a radio station. So sales, marketing, and then of course on air. And yeah, at the end of the internship, obviously some individuals were placed, but I was not one of those
like,
individuals.
no, ma'am.
Yeah, they were like, no, ma'am, go back to law. So,
And then you're like, I have no option. Let me go back to my very first love. So then what did you enjoy the most during the internship, since you were moving around different departments, your sales, your marketing, the A? What was your most favorite department, and what did it teach you about you?
oh, I thoroughly enjoyed being in marketing. I thoroughly enjoyed on air. I liked on air.
I was about to say, I thought you'd say on air because you're so happy to speak. You're so happy to converse.
I know, but I wasn't always like, out of my shell like this. Like I said, I'm naturally a reserved person, but now I've learned how to like, okay, now you need to speak. So you need to
come out.
Yes, then I'll come out of my shell. If I know you, I'll come out of my shell.
Yeah.
But naturally, instinctively, I'm very like reserved. I won't say anything. And I think back then I couldn't differentiate between my personality and work, because when you're on air, it's work. You can't be shy. You can't bring your personality.
You just have to speak. Yeah.
Like, you gotta say something. Actually, this reminds me, I had such an embarrassing moment, like on
Story time. Get your coffee and tea.
oh yeah, no, embarrassing moments. Like where I just had dead air, but because I was just so nervous and so shy. So yeah, but back to the question, I enjoyed marketing. I did enjoy on air, and I enjoyed film a lot. I enjoyed film and television, learning about it. So yeah.
And what did it teach you about you?
That I'm a storyteller, that I'm creative, that I'm a hybrid between an intellect and a creative. Yeah, that's you don't. Society can and I think as individuals we can limit ourselves to certain traits and certain skills, and not realize that we're multifaceted as humans. So it's about embracing and developing that equally.
Okay, love that. And then after you don't get in, is that when you started applying for articles?
Yes, so that's actually not when I started applying for articles.
Okay. What did you then get up to before you get to the part where you start applying for articles?
I found an area of law that I quite enjoyed.
Okay.
Which is insolvency law. And that was like literally by chance. Long story short, I ended up working very closely with the Liquidator, who is now one of my mentors. And his company offered a bursary to go and do a short course in insolvency law. And that was my first exposure into the profession, into the speciality of insolvency law. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, law's not that bad.
Yeah.
And it clicked with like, I think once you find your space in law and you're able to own your space in law, then that's when it becomes enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I think the frustration for me came is that everyone was finding their niche. Everyone was either, becoming an advocate, or they were in a firm and they were in a specialized department in that firm, and they were happy, they'd found their niche. And I was just like, man, when am I going to find my niche?
Yeah.
And it came along.
So now you mentioned that you had not done articles yet. So if you want to go into insolvency, it's not a requirement for you to be an admitted attorney.
No, it's not. Because at the time I was pursuing, obviously I wanted to become a liquidator. So in insolvency, there's two main, I guess, professions, which is you can either be a liquidator or business rescue practitioner. So for liquidations, there's an exam that you write. oof, that exam was tough.
I was about to say, how was the exam? Is there anything tougher than board exams?
That's the thing. It's like boards on steroids because it's like a bit of boards and then a bit of something that you don't necessarily understand.
Yeah.
Because in varsity, insolvency is an elective. So you can either do it or you don't. And I remember I did insolvency as an elective and I quite enjoyed it, you know, but then I put it at the back of my mind. I was like, that was nice. Okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's a bit of law and a bit of like, whoa, what is this?
So in order for you to be qualified as a liquidator, you can proceed to write the liquidator's exam without you being an admitted attorney. Then you can still be considered a liquidator.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's a lot of liquidators that aren't admitted attorneys. Also, you can also help with like deceased estates.
Okay.
So administrating of deceased estates that also falls within insolvency. And yeah, a lot of people do that as well.
Okay. And is there money there? Because I know people at home, they like knowing about money. Like, do people that do you get paid well? Like, how does it look like financially for a person who wants to go into it?
It is a bit tough.
Okay.
So there's pros and cons. And what I will say is how it works is you get appointments. So there's masters in every region. And, you know, if a company goes into liquidation or if there's a deceased estate, the master will then appoint someone over that deceased estate or that liquidation. So how it works, especially with the master's office, they also have a PDI list, a previously disadvantaged individuals. So where it's almost like a mentor-mentee type of thing, because I think the department realized that, you know, not a lot of people know about liquidations and deceased estates. It's something that's very new.
Yeah.
And so with the PDI list, you automatically get appointed on matters. And the whole aim of that is for you to be able to shadow experienced liquidators. And you're still obviously able to generate fees. But I will say that just like anything else in law, you have to build a reputation because the way you get matters is through appointments. And the way you get appointments is, you know, you obviously have to get people to support you, creditors to support you. So liquidations take time to pay out because you as the liquidator only get your fees after all the assets have been dissolved in the estate.
So are you telling me, like, for instance, I've seen like a couple of times, like with business rescue or even liquidation takes years. So you don't get your fees until it's completely done.
Yeah, like your end fees, you don't get it until you like finalize the estate, finalize the liquidation. And that can take some time. But it depends if you get big matters. So liquidators get a percentage of whatever. So if you're selling immovable property, you get 3% of that. If you're selling movable property, you get 10% of that. You know, if you cash in the bank, you'll get a percentage of that. So it depends. If you're getting almost like advocates, you'll have maybe a good liquidation that's going to pay you out a lot, and you'll have a bad liquidation, you know. But it just depends on which matters you get.
Okay, so it depends on how big your matters are.
Yes, because that will determine your remuneration, so to say.
Okay. And then now you find this thing that you love, you're enjoying it, but you still go get articles. Why? Like, why couldn't you just stay a liquidator and like just stay in your own thing that you love? What influenced you to actually decide to go look for articles, and how is that process like?
It was, honestly, I feel like it was, I think what prevented me as well, and I think, if it's part of it, to admit it, is that I guess I had a fear of like going into a firm and like working, because, you know, as a lawyer, you hear crazy stories. You're exposed to a lot, you know, especially firm life. You know what happens and you know what it takes. And I guess I've always struggled, I think, throughout my career with a low self-esteem. So I'd always put myself out of the game before I'd even like
be in the game.
Exactly.
Like you sort of disqualify yourself before you even enter the room.
So for me, I think a large part of it was like I didn't believe in myself that I could do it. But eventually what pushed me is that I knew that if I wanted more doors to open for me, I had to get admitted. There was no two ways about it, you know. And I knew that, you know, if I wanted to really explore what this degree can do for me, that was the way to go.
You know, you touch on a very important subject. I think a lot of people out there, especially young people that are going into different professions, they do tend to struggle with self-esteem or that fear of the unknown and all of that. How did you get out of your shell? How did you, because now like you are confident, you're well-spoken, like you just more of yourself. How did you get to this point where you stopped being scared and you stopped having a low self-esteem? Like what can a person do to like just be more confident? Yeah.
I think it starts with like self-acceptance. You know, you really need to learn how to accept yourself and understand that the gifts that God has placed in you is so sufficient for everything that you need to do on this earth. I think, you know, but we're so quick to compare ourselves. I think comparison is the thief of joy. We're so quick to just, I don't know, always look outside ourselves. So I think for me, a big shift was just really appreciating who I am as a person and not being so hard on yourself, understanding that everyone makes mistakes, everyone goes through things, but it doesn't mean that you're less of a person or that you don't deserve to be here doing what you do, you know, because you don't know how you can touch someone's life. And then also just understood that yes, I know I'm like shy, I'm introverted, but I have goals and dreams, and that requires me to be someone else, so to say. You know, that requires me to be bold and to be confident, because I couldn't understand how, like, you know, like these Instagram posts where it's like, no, just do it. There's people with half your qualifications who are thriving, because that rings true to a lot of people. And you realize that those people just have the confidence in themselves. So you really owe it to yourself to just go for it.
Yeah, I love that so much, man. And I think another thing, you say something very important. Self-acceptance is very important. Accepting where you are and knowing that you also have the power to change it if you are unhappy with it, you know. And in as much as we will constantly encourage each other to say, just do it, but sometimes it's entirely up to you as an individual to make that choice. Because I think before you actually act or do anything, it starts with you deciding to say, you know what, I want to be a lawyer, and if I'm going to be the best lawyer there's ever been, I have to be an admitted attendant, or I have to be this or that, and then you start going for it, you know. And I think I recently learned, or not even recently learned, but I've been coming across content where like somebody was explaining, I think it was Bongani, there's a guy called Bongani who's in tech, like he shares a lot of TikTok videos, and then he was explaining how sometimes we give externalities too much credit, but particularly people. But people really don't care about us like that as much as we think. Then he asked a simple question and said, what are the last 5 videos you watched on Instagram? And then the other person couldn't remember. And then he's like, you see, that's how, like, people are not versed in you like that. Like, I can see you right now and think, oh my God, you look so beautiful. But 10 minutes later, I'm not going to be thinking, oh, she had a bracelet on. Oh, this is how she was seated. And we judge ourselves too much. And we think people are seated with like a notebook saying, yeah, this is how she spoke. This is how she walked. And people don't care. Everybody's scared, by the way. Like, people don't care. Everybody's scared. Because I think sometimes there's this misnomer that when you go for the things that you go for, or the things that you love or you're passionate about, people think you're not scared. You don't have anxiety. You don't have this. But I believe in the notion, do it afraid. Do it anyway. You know, I can sit here and be so nervous, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to shoot. I'm just going to sit here. Eventually you get into it. Like when you start, go for it. Like eventually you will be familiar. Okay, so now you do your articles. Was it easy finding articles?
No. No, that journey is never easy.
Yeah.
It's never easy finding articles. But I'm glad that I eventually did.
Okay.
And how I actually got my articles is because I was working at the insolvency firm, and we obviously work with a lot of attorneys. And that's how I met my principal. It was because we were, their firm, we had briefed their firm and we had been working with their firm. And then they told me, they were like, hey, have you done I just got to chatting with one of the directors one day, and he's like, hey, are you admitted? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And he was like, okay, well, our applications are going to open soon. And how he actually got to talking to me is because at the time, like I've got this weird working schedule where I work really early in the morning or late at night.
Oh, okay.
And he also has the same type of working structure. He works really early in the morning. Like he'll start working at like 2 a.m.
Okay.
So he'd always see my emails coming in at 2, 3. And then one day he just asked me, he's like, I see you, obviously he's like, I see you have a great work ethic. You're always working like really late, really early. Then he took an interest in me and was like, are you admitted? So I'm like, no, I'm not admitted. Then he was like, okay, cool. Well, we have applications opening up. Obviously, I can't promise you anything, but apply. I think you owe it to yourself to kind of see what you can do. And it was really, really tough. I got into the firm. I was placed. And then articles was not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, articles was not easy. It challenged me in ways, and also because I was living in Joburg at the time, and my firm was in Pretoria, so every day I was driving. To Pretoria every single day, and yeah, it was grueling. Articles is a grueling process.
Yeah, it's a lot. And during that process, now you have to do like your PLTs. You have to do board exams and all of that. In as much as you were engaging with a number of attorneys, like, were you prepared for what it was? Like, or was it a shocker to your system?
I don't think anything could have prepared me, to be honest. I don't think anything could have prepared me. It was just different because I'd been working at the insolvency firm. So I was accustomed to certain ways of working. I was accustomed to being exposed to certain matters, and then going to a firm where we did do insolvency, but also did a lot of other litigation work. So it was really, I just had to stretch myself.
And what did that season teach you about you?
I think that, you can get through hard things.
Okay.
And I remember once a friend always told me, don't give up just because it's hard. And that's what it was. It was sometimes you just have to do things. Because I knew while I was doing this, I knew I had to get admitted if I wanted to progress in law. So that was just kind of the thing to be like, sometimes you're going to go through the most.
Yeah.
But you need to keep your eye on the prize. And, it's not always going to be like this forever. That's what I always tell myself. It's not always going to be like this forever.
Yeah. So you operated from a space of, what, it's hard now, but eventually it's going to be okay. Do you think university prepared you for the workplace?
No, I don't think university prepared me for the workplace. I think university gives you the tools, the books, the knowledge, but application, that's all up to you being in the real world.
And how was your experience with board exams like?
I was so nervous to write my boards. I literally wrote one, and then I wrote...
No, you took it, and you took it slowly but surely.
Yes, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with the trauma of failing. Rather, I'm just take this thing I'm going to manage myself. And I'm going to make sure when I write,
proper pacing
I
yourself.
So I wrote one, and then I wrote the last two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
I need to build up my confidence.
Okay. I love that. To people at home, if you are preparing for boards, apparently they're now going to have 5 papers. Yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
So if you are preparing for boards, rather if you're uncertain or you want a bit of a confidence booster, do 1-1. But I think the other problem is with 1-1, you have to be set in stone that you're going to pass.
Yeah.
Because you can't be doing 1-1 and then you fail that one, and then time is also moving. So if you're going to do 1, just know that you're prepared to pass. You have no other option. But I really love that you said 1-1 and then the last 2. Which one did you find very challenging, and which one did you enjoy the most?
I enjoyed ethics.
You enjoyed ethics?
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people complain about ethics.
The beast of the beast. A lot of people are not admitted because of ethics.
I know, and I really enjoyed ethics. I was like, I think ethics was actually my highest mark.
Are you for real? Wow, love that. And which one did you find very challenging?
I think probably... I want to say wills and estates. I want to say that.
Oh, I loved wills
really?
And estates. For me, I think it was the easiest. I felt like it was easy marks. What's that thing? DLNA
The
account,
L&D.
the L&D account, yes. Oh my God, I was like 3 marks, scoping fast. Wills, what is a will? 5 marks. Yo, I felt like it was for me, it was very easy to pass because I love convenience. Like, it's like quick and fast, like it's straight to the point. It's not like your paper one where you have to study so many things.
Yeah.
It's just
No,
a
but
lot.
if you liked wills and ethics, then probably liquidations for you because you also do an L&D account in
Yes,
liquidations.
I remember at some point when I was doing my articles, my principal is he does a lot of insolvency as well. At some point I had that interest. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna explore it in future. But I did have interest in business rescue. Even I did so well in my insolvency law module.
Okay.
So you never know. Hey, maybe you need to put me on.
No, don't worry. I'm gonna convince you after this.
So okay. And then now you finally get admitted as an attorney. What then informs your choices after that, right? You have an understanding that in order for you to grow and more doors be open, you need to be an admitted attorney, but you also then take a different route. Did you do, after, how long were you in practice? Like after articles, did you just completely leave after articles or did you stay a bit?
I was like,
You just asked, you're just like me,
out.
like, hey, I've taken my oath. I've taken the photo outside the high court and the oath. Deuces, I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah, I cried at my admission. I cried tears when I took that oath because I was like, what a rough road. But yeah, no, I was out. I didn't stay in practice. I went back to my insolvency firm actually because my plan was then to, be able to do, offer like legal support. So I went back and I knew that I wanted to be in insolvency. I knew I wanted to be a business rescue practitioner. That was like, I knew I wanted to do that. And yeah, so I went straight back. I didn't waste time.
Okay. So in short, what do business rescue practitioners and liquidators do? Like, what does it do? If you're saying you're a liquidator or you're a business rescue practitioner, what are you doing? Or if you're saying you're practicing in insolvency law, what are you doing for a person who wants to go into it?
So business rescue, you are helping distressed companies turn around.
Okay.
With the liquidation, the company has already failed. You are literally just selling off the assets.
Okay.
So it's rooted very much in business. So if you're someone who enjoys business, you're someone who enjoys being in different sectors, because that's your job as a business rescue practitioner. One day you're turning around a mine, the next day you're turning around a hotel. So you're in different industries all the time, but the principle remains the same. How can you return this business to solvency?
Okay. Love that. And then how do you end up going to the bank? Like, what took you there? Or did you do anything outside the bank just after you going back to the solvency firm?
No, I didn't. After that, I went straight into the bank. I think what really took me there is a lot of the senior practitioners that I looked up to. They all had banking experience.
Okay.
Yes. And also how it works in business rescue, your banks are your biggest creditors. So you need to be able to get support from the banks. You need to have you need to be able to, work with the banks. So I felt like that banking experience was going to be essential to me being a really good practitioner because I needed to understand what is the bank's view. When I come to them as a business rescue practitioner, I'm like, hey, this business is failing. I need more money. I need to understand what's the bank's processes to tell me yes or no to give me money for my business. So I thought that was going to be a critical skill in me eventually becoming the best BRP.
Yes, and that's on period. And then what does a role of a risk legal specialist look like? What do you guys do?
So we work with distressed companies, companies that are in liquidation, companies that aren't able to necessarily, obviously meet their obligations that they have with the bank. And then we look at how we can restructure their deals, how we can, if the company is already in business rescue, how can we work with the practitioner to make sure that, we try and help turn the company around. So it's the same thing, I guess, just on the other side.
Okay. All right. And then how has it been moving from the firm you worked for into the bank? How has the transition been?
First, it was really strange because I'd never been in such a big institution before where I did my articles. It was a small firm.
Okay.
My insolvency firms are generally really small, like business rescue firms. So it was the first time I was in an organization of this size where it's just like you're you are like one of millions.
Mm.
So so it was fine. I was fortunate enough to get into a really good team. When I say a good team, I mean like everyone's just really good people. Our leaders are really, really great. And it's not, I know that not everyone has that story when working for a financial institution, because I know that it can be toxic. So I guess I was just fortunate enough to find a really good team.
Okay. And then financially, so can you be a legal risk specialist without admission? Or do you need to be admitted as an attorney?
There are some people that have been in the bank for years
Okay.
that, eventually move into that team. But if you're someone new, then preferably they want you to be an admitted attorney.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's either in two ways, where you already work for the bank and you keep moving around and then you find yourself in that department or in that role, or if you want to go into that, rather work towards being admitted as an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does your day look like?
I'm happy because we mostly work from home.
Oh, I love that.
So it's just obviously you manage a portfolio. A lot of meetings. I think that was also the big jump from my firm to like the bank. There's a lot of meetings, a lot of reports, a lot of like just, I guess I want to say, like tasks that you just, because it's such a big organization. So, there's so many checks, so many balances that you have to adhere to all the time. So yeah, it's just a lot of reporting, a lot of, dealing with attorneys, our external attorneys, looking at, what is the risk here? What's the best legal route to follow? How can I really try and improve the situation for the client, so to say.
Okay. And then financially, how rewarding is it?
I think moving from a firm to corporate, usually the biggest motivator, and I'm not excluded from this, is the salary, because
Okay.
I think that corporate does pay more than you practicing in a smaller firm, and obviously they're able to offer more benefits.
Okay.
So that is, I guess, a plus side of it. So I think that's been the upside.
As a person who seems quite fluid when it comes to moving around to improve their career, what are 3 things that you think a person should always consider just before they make a career move to a different industry or to a different role?
I think you need to, well, what I like to do is like model or look at the career history of someone I aspire to be. So like with my senior business rescue practitioners, they had banking experience, a lot of them. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I need to move into the bank. So I think if it ties up to your bigger picture and your bigger goal, then go for it, But if it doesn't, then I wouldn't necessarily say take it unless you feel like it's going to challenge you or give you a skill that can put you at a competitive advantage. Yeah.
Okay. So I think also from what you said earlier on, it's okay, the looking at people that you aspire to be like, and then also looking at the salary. It's important when you move, like look at the salary. Because my other thing is, I do believe that it's nice to move for experience, but sometimes you must apply logic to the move, right? So if you were getting paid 15,000 rand, I don't think it's a wise move to go move for a 5,000 rand difference, unless if it really makes a difference to you. Because again, if you're going to move for a difference of 5,000 rand, that is probably going to go to tax. Technically, you still earn the same salary. So I think if you're going to move, it's important that you look at the salary, you look at what it does for your career as well. Like you're saying that, like looking at people that you aspire to be like, or people that are already in the position that you'd like to be one day, and then look at the steps they've taken or what they've done to get there, then apply yourself to it. And then what is that one skill that you think every single person should learn, and why?
I think being a good communicator.
Okay.
Because you need to be able, and being brave enough to say what's on your mind. because like you're saying with the salaries, sometimes you'll find that these jobs that we're applying for, because you know they always ask you what's your salary expectation, and then you don't want to like.
That's a trap because sometimes these companies have a very big budget,
Yes.
right? They want to give you a meal per year, and then you say your expectation give 400,000. They are not going to give you a meal. They'll probably bump you to 700 because they'll feel like you're still happy, and then they get to keep the 300,000. So yeah, make sure I love that.
Yeah, like go for it. And this is advice that I recently got from a colleague who's also in law. She was like, don't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, what is the worst that could happen? What is the worst thing that they could say? Because they probably are going to try and bump you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just go for it. Like, yeah, be a good communicator and be brave enough to communicate exactly what you want to communicate.
Yeah, expressing yourself fully and honestly. And I think, man, I love that a lot of people actually have said that they do believe that it's important that you're a good communicator. And sometimes people do think that being a good communicator means just speaking your mind, but also learning how to do so politely and professionally. You know, how effective are you as a communicator? It's not like I'm just going to call my boss and be like, hey, I want more money. Give me more money. But it's like, hey, can we have a sit down? I think I'm due for a increase or a promotion, and here are my books. This is what I've done. This is what I bring to the table. But you're definitely right. Learning how to communicate effectively. And if you were to use a movie to describe your life, which movie would it be and why?
Yeah, I think like, I'd say maybe Inside Out. It's an
Okay.
animation. I love animation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's just about this little girl who, and it's just okay. It's about this little girl, but what we get to see as viewers is like her emotions inside her brain, and so she's got like anger, joy, happiness, like sadness, and they're all like competing to kind of project themselves out.
Yeah.
So I think I was like, yeah, that's how we feel sometimes as humans. You know, we don't like. We're overstimulated. We're so busy. There's so much going on. You're like happy, you're sad, you this, you that. And it's just like, yeah, sometimes you can just feel overwhelmed. But always what I liked about that movie is that joy would always like, take
Override
center stage.
everything else.
So it's just like whatever happens in your life, just always be happy, be grateful, keep it moving. Like you are the person you think you are.
Okay, I love that. It's Youth Month. To a young person watching this podcast, what would you want them to know that would encourage them?
That your dreams are valid, as crazy as cliche as that sounds. It's true, and you're valued. You're seen by God. You're here for a purpose and for a reason, and there's someone, in this life that will be inspired by you. So it's so important to always be your authentic self in whatever you do, and just love your family, appreciate those who wish you well and who pour into you, and listen to advice. Sometimes
people don't listen. No, actually, you're right. It's like, why am I like, what's wrong with you?
Listen to advice.
Yeah.
And listen to the right advice.
Yes, right
don't
advice.
Don't listen to anything,
Don't listen to TikTok advice.
Exactly.
Like, trusted sources are very important.
Exactly.
Okay, no, I love that. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. This was so beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed myself and learned quite a lot of things. In closing, what is the season of your life?
Transition into everything I've ever dreamed of.
Ooh, what a time to be you right now. Love that. And I'm going to tap into that, like your transition into everything you've ever dreamed of. No, love that so much. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. Truly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
I hope to have you again when you now have your own insolvency firm and you're giving us tea and all of that.
Because the tea is real.
Ja, thank you so much to everybody at home. If you have any more questions about going into insolvency, you're welcome to leave them in the comment box, and then I will pass them through to Blaise and she'll be able to answer. And do not forget to use the thanks option. Do not forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. And happy Employment Wednesdays, happy Youth Month. Remember, your dreams are valid. Thank you.